In 2022, Dubai, undying vampire Louis de Pointe de Lac starts retelling his biography to writer Daniel Malloy. In 1910, fruitful New Orleans massage parlor proprietor Louis is become a close acquaintance with by the puzzling and attractive Frenchman Lestat de Lioncourt. Louis, troubled by his pained, more youthful sibling Paul, and the limits put upon him as a person of color, battles with Louis's rising appreciation for the ostentatious and jaunty Lestat. At the point when Louis and Lestat at last consummate their relationship, Louis is overwhelmed by the extreme sentiments brought upon by Lestat's little beverage of his blood and promises at no point ever to see Lestat in the future. During a wedding, in a moment of happiness, Paul and Louis dance a jig together and later climb up to the rooftop of their home. Paul, being immensely troubled in life, leaps off the rooftop to his demise. A crushed and tormented Louis is blamed for Paul's death by his mother. He relates his many sins in a congregation confession booth. However, Lestat shows up and butchers the ministers. Lestat offers Louis a departure from the difficulties of his human life, and with Louis's understanding, Lestat makes him a vampire. Lestat starts showing Louis how to chase after prey and utilize his new vampiric powers, and while he is very eager to take care of his new apprentice and show him the ropes, Louis isn't the callous executioner his tutor is. After 6 years, Louis and Lestat have bought the Fair Play Cantina and rechristened it as Azalea Corridor. Yet Louis still battles with his new life and the taking of innocent lives to nourish himself. After a much past due visit home, the compulsion to drink the blood of his newborn child nephew horrendously reminds Louis that he is, at this point, no longer a human. In any case, he can't completely embrace the relaxed savagery and negligence for human existence. While Lestat has no problem perishing a tenor show vocalist before him, Louis recommends that he and Lestat just go after the most exceedingly awful of humanity. Lestat takes part in the trial. However, Louis actually has misgivings that drive him to feed off the blood of animals. Louis feels undermined when Lestat takes a blues vocalist Antoinette as a sweetheart, so Louis hooks up with Jonah, a cherished companion in town on leave. Louis observes that he is unwanted at his family's home, as his mom Florence sees what he is, a dark soul that has lost his humanity. Magistrate Fenwick targets Azalea Corridor as part of a move by white entrepreneurs to drive Louis and other dark-skinned proprietors out of Storyville to assume control over their properties. This is the straw that broke the camel's back for Louis, who murders Fenwick and hangs his damaged corpse out in the open as a lesson to other white business owners. The white residents fight back with fire and destruction of black-owned businesses. A down-and-out Louis hears the pleas for help of a teenage girl in a burning motel and surges in to save her. In the present, Daniel peruses Claudia's journals. She is saved from the fire by Louis, yet she is terribly burned by the flames. Louis persuades Lestat to make her a vampire instead of let her bite the dust. Claudia gets a compressed lesson in vampire etiquette and makes her first kill. However, she ends up being impetuous. After all, she's still a teenager. As a vampire's thoughts can't be perused by the person who made them, Louis and Claudia have an extraordinary association separated from Lestat, able to privately converse with their thoughts. Louis's mom kicks the bucket, and his sister Grace wants to purchase their family's home from Louis. As the years go on, Claudia becomes enraged to be a grown-up in the body of a young person and acts out in defiance. She goes gaga for a man named Charlie, yet in her excitement and inability to control it, she accidentally kills him. Vampire Daddy Lestat forces her to watch as he ignites Charlie's body. Typical overprotective dad vibes. Louis and Lestat discover that Claudia has subtly been on a mass homicide binge and has imprudently unloaded the bodies in a space just beneath the stream level. A major storm comes in, and a large number of cadavers wash up. The police come to the townhouse for a standard search of the residence and almost find the human parts Claudia has been gathering in her room. Complaining that Lestat and Louis have each other to adore, Claudia has no one, and she concedes that she has attempted to make different vampires to have somebody for herself, yet has over and again failed to create a vampire buddy. Claudia leaves for parts obscure, and Louis's relationship with Lestat is more regrettable than at any other time. During her movements, Claudia meets another vampire named Bruce, who does something to her that Louis won't examine with Daniel in the present. Following 7 years investigating vampire legend, Claudia gets back to remove Louis with her and leave Lestat. Louis is enticed by her proposal, and an incensed Lestat assaults him, leaving Louis beaten into a bloody mess. Lestat has vanished in disgrace and shame, and Claudia nurses Louis back to well-being. A repentant Lestat spends years making grand gestures to apologize to Louis, and eventually makes a suggestion to rejoin with Louis, who disregards the expressions of remorse and gifts for a considerable length of time. Be that as it may, Louis can't relinquish his association with Lestat, and he and Claudia consider permitting their creator back into revisioned adaptation of their family, where Claudia is an equal. They provide Lestat with a rundown of conditions for his return. However, they can clearly see that nothing has changed. Lestat relates how, as a human, he was captured by the vampire Magnus, kept in a room loaded with bodies that looked like him, and at last made Lestat a vampire, after which Magnus immolated himself. Louis attempts to expedite harmony between Lestat and Claudia, however without much of any result. Lestat restricts Claudia from leaving them again, demanding that Louis needs the two of them. Claudia concludes that she and Louis need to kill Lestat to at long last be liberated from him, and Louis, after much torment, finally concurs. In the present, Daniel longs for his most memorable experience as a young fellow with Louis, and recalls that Louis's young familiar, Rashid, was also there. The vampire's peculiarity and inability to age has drawn in much unwanted attention from the townspeople, so Lestat concludes they ought to leave New Orleans. Claudia maneuvers Lestat toward throwing a lavish and eccentric Mardi Gras ball before they leave, and party like it's 1932. In the present, Louis explains to Daniel that there are in fact multiple approaches to kill a vampire. At the ball, the vampires pick a modest bunch of visitors to be butchered and depleted a short time later. Claudia lets Louis know that she has medicated one of them with laudanum and arsenic. As Lestat is ready to drink from the poisoned man, he uncovers that Antoinette is now a vampire, has cautioned him of Claudia and Louis's plan, yet he unexpectedly collapses. A victorious Claudia reveals that she realized Antoinette was following her, and that she likewise poisoned Tom Anderson, from whom Lestat has previously drank. Louis cuts Lestat's throat, and he and Claudia move Lestat's cadaver in a trunk to be tossed in the city dump. In the present, Daniel blames Louis for leaving Lestat someplace brimming with rodents as a way to save him. In an epic twist, Louis uncovers that Rashid is really the ancient vampire Armand, and his first true love of his life.